Thanks, DeAndre. Thanks everybody for joining. I hope this will be a helpful and informative session. We are here to talk about one big piece of the relief program that Congress put into place last year and has refined several times since then. The small business relief programs that have enabled so much of our economy to at least keep going through this incredibly difficult time. And I know that many of our small business owners continue to face tremendous difficulties. Here's what we've done so far. In our district alone, we have just through the PPP program delivered about $1.7 billion in assistance to our small business owners, to their employees, to our economy. 15,000 of our small businesses have managed to get loans supporting around 150,000 jobs in our district. I've got about 750,000 people in my district, so think about the scale of that. It's probably around 1 in every 3 jobs in the district supported in some way by this program. And we have improved and refined it. Back in the summer, we passed legislation that gave folks more flexibility, more time to spend the money. And then in the bill that we passed in December, we restarted the program. We simplified forgiveness for folks with loans under $150,000, and we gave businesses a chance to apply for a second loan if they could show the need to do that. So that's all been going reasonably well with difficulties that you all have brought to my attention and my colleagues' attention that we have tried to address. And this session will help me as a legislator hearing from you to learn what more we need to improve in these programs. I'm sure you have read that Congress is working on another major relief package. I don't expect huge changes to the PPP program, but we are looking to put some specialized programs in there, particularly for the restaurant sector. You may be, if you're a restaurant owner, you may be aware of the Restaurant Act, which supplements PPP with direct grants to restaurants and bars and those kinds of establishments to compensate for revenues lost due to COVID. And that's in the legislation that we are moving in the House and that we now have a much better chance of passing given the change in control of the Senate and a new president in the White House. So that's something we're working on right now. But with that, I'd like to bring forward our guest, Al Titone, who's done this several times for us. He'll do a little presentation about where the programs are so far, and then we'll get to your questions as quickly as possible. Thanks again. Al, over to you.
Okay, now you can hear me, right? Thank you, sir. Okay, so folks, I'm going to go through a lot of slides. You will be able to get these. They will have them for distribution in the Congressman's office. The reason for this is that I want to make sure that we are all on the same page. Okay, so let's see. Let's go to the first slide there, DeAndre. All right, so this kind of just an overview. All right, just kind of what we're talking about, kind of touches on what the Congressman just spoke of. Next slide. Okay, just an agenda. Next slide. So something to keep in mind about with this, a lot of the numbers are combined with the first program. There's not a lot of huge differences, but there are some significant ones that I'm going to be talking about. Next. All right, so these are the loans and grant programs. Obviously the PPP, debt relief on all 7A, 504 and micro loans, the EIDL economic disaster loan, the targeted EIDL, and the shuttered venue operators grant, which I know a lot of folks have interest in. but we'll touch on them later. But right now, they're very limited, or they aren't actually active, depending which one we're talking about. Next. Okay, so what they did this round is it expanded the eligibility. You can now select a covered period between 8 and 24 weeks. Depending how hardly hit you were, you may be qualify for a second draw PPP if you actually got one in the first round. There are some additional expenses that you can that are covered with the PPP, so it can be fully forgiven. There's a simplified forgiveness form for those under 150K. And what was happening before, and this was kind of a big issue, it was one of those unintended consequences. Anybody who got an idle advance in the original, that was deducted from the PPP loan. That is no longer being done, and actually most of those are being taken care of retroactively for the business. Next slide. And again, folks, I'm going through this very quickly because I'd much rather be able to answer legitimate questions, or if I can't answer them, fine. So the first draw is for anybody who did not apply the first time around. Okay, so there are a lot of companies that can get them now that we're not able to get them the first round. Again, the covered period has been expanded. Certain borrowers can actually request and increase to their original PPP loan. That takes a bit more work. You got to have a lot of stuff you have to submit. You must have been in business by February 15th of this year. That's kind of a key for the first draw. And you have to apply short of Congress extending it on or before March 31st. So you have about a month and a half. Next. Okay, so who's newly eligible? Housing cooperatives. They could not get a PPP loan first time around. Destination marketing folks, 501c6 organizations. And that was a big, huge one. So I was really glad that they changed that this time around. That was a big issue. And eligible news organizations. Still eligible, well, pretty much everybody that was eligible before. Next. So for the second drawer, okay, so this is kind of important. I'm going to touch on a couple things that aren't necessarily in the slides at this point. The maximum loan is going to be up to $2 million and 2.5 times the average monthly 2019 or 2020 payroll costs. For those in the food services sector, your maximum loan can be 3.5 times the payroll costs, but still only up to $2 million. There's a special form you have to submit, okay, which is important. But let me tell you the other single most important thing for everyone who is doing a second draw PPP loan. The information in the loan has to be identical to the information in the first. So if you use the social security number for your business in the first, do not use an EIN number in the second, because it will get flagged, it will get pulled to the side. Hopefully it won't get lost in space someplace, but we're seeing a lot of that. And there's a number of things that seem to trigger it. So what I've basically been telling people is look at your first application, make sure everything is identical. Did you abbreviate apartment? Then abbreviate it in the second one. Don't spell it out. We don't know exactly at this point what is triggering this, but we know a lot of loans are getting triggered for not matching. This is part of the fraud protection that SBA installed for this round of the program. And in the end, it's a good thing, but it is causing some agita with folks because, I know in my own address, sometimes I write out Avenue, sometimes I write AVE. But whatever you did, make sure you do it the same way the second time around. And I'm sorry, and for the first draw, folks, it has to be identical to the last, your last tax return. Okay, so again, same thing. Everything needs to be the same. Use the EIN number, use it again. You use social security number, use it again. Everything is the same. It's got to be identical to your last tax return, because they are looking at every single one of these. That's why there is a delay between when the bank puts it in, and there's a few days delay before SBA approves. Next slide, please. Okay, who's eligible? You had to have had a first draw PPP loan. You had to have used all the money in that PPP loan. Doesn't mean you have to be in the forgiveness process yet, but you had to have used all the money only for eligible expenses. So as you might remember, we were telling folks, I believe in actually the last one we did for the congressman, is that you don't have to use it all for PPP related, for payroll related expenses, but then whatever's left over becomes a loan. So if you did that, it's unlikely you will be eligible for a second draw PPP. Okay, so that's an important distinction to make. So you must have received it, you must have done it all and be eligible for forgiveness, whether or not you're in that process yet. Also, you want to remember, you want to have to be able to demonstrate a 25% reduction in gross receipts between comparable quarters of 2019 and 2020. I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't found too many businesses that can't do that, that are interested in the PPP loan, but nonetheless, it is a requirement. And it can't be 24.999%. There's no rounding up. It's got to be 25% or better. Next. Okay, the application process is pretty similar to what it was. Find the lender. We've listed a bunch of stuff here you can do to try to find one. Complete the application. The lender submits it, and SBA sends out the loan number. Again, it's a March 31st deadline. And as I mentioned, once the lender puts the loan into SBA, there is a bit of a delay because they are checking for fraud. Next. Okay, so I'm going to warn here what I did last time. So for the new PPP, and actually the second half of the first PPP, for any portion that is not forgiven, it's a 1% interest rate, 5-year maturity. Now, a lot of people initially will tell me, wow, that's great. Well, yeah, that might be great if you had a $50,000 loan, but do the math, because 5 years, 1%, and you're looking at $150,000, $200,000 loan. That's a pretty big nut. Okay, so just be careful. So it's the same with this as it was the first. Whatever you are using the PPP for to be forgiven, it has to be all payroll expenses, and there's a list of what it can be used for. And you don't have to, but then only the part that you use for payroll related or business related expense, some business related expenses will be forgiven. Next. Okay. Again, as I mentioned earlier, idle's no longer being deducted from the PPP loan. Some expenses are deductible. That's not if you have questions on that, talk to the IRS, because quite honestly, I have no idea about that stuff. Expanded forgivable expenses are permissible. And again, so you guys can all read. Per the CARES Act, forgiven PPP loans are not federally taxable income. And that includes partially forgiven PPP loans. So the part that's forgiven is not taxable income. However, the part that wasn't forgiven, it's just as if you were taking a regular loan. So keep that in mind too for tax purposes. Next. Okay, so the idle loan can be used for working capital and normal operating expenses, continuation of healthcare benefits, etc. It's 3 3/4% for businesses, 2 3/4% for nonprofits. It's 30 years, no prepayment penalty, and anything over 25 secured by a UCC filing, which $100 is deducted. Pretty much everyone is eligible for a idle loan, as long as you fall into the size standards. Next. Okay, I'm not going to go over a lot of this. Basically, this is a new program. you can't apply for this. SBA decides who will fit into the targeted idle advance. And what it is, so that you know, is if folks didn't get the full 10 grand, if they qualify for this program, and let's say they got $2,000 because they only had 2 employees, they'll get the full 10. but it is being very specifically targeted. You cannot apply for it. The agency is figuring it out, however they're figuring it out. But you should be made aware of it because it is something that's out there. Next. Next. Yeah, we don't need to go this. Next. Okay, this is another one we're getting a lot of questions on. Applications still are not open yet. If you are a shuttered venue and you think you'll qualify, the first thing you should go is go to sam.gov and register your business. It shows here who's eligible. There are some things that are missing from here, as many of you may realize if you're in the business. It's basically designed around folks that have seating, like theaters and venues that actually have seating. But we'll see what the end product looks like. We had to have been in business as of February 29th of 2020. You cannot, this is another big disqualifying factor. You cannot have applied for a PPP loan on or after the 27th of December of 2020. So what does that mean? If you applied and it was submitted to the agency, you can't get an SVOG loan. Doesn't matter if you pulled it back. It doesn't matter if you decided not to take it. None of that matters. If you applied and it was sent into the agency, you will not get a shuttered venues operation grant, even if you would normally qualify for it otherwise. Don't shoot the messenger. I didn't make those rules, but I guess part of it had to do with because the new PPP is so much more generous, and this is just a guess, that maybe is why, but nonetheless, they don't really want you double dipping. Okay, you got to remember it's federal money. We have a certain fiduciary responsibility for it, and I guess that all ties in. So if you apply for the second round of the PPP, you will not be able to get this grant. Next. This is a great slide. It kind of shows across, kind of cross-references everything. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because I'm sure you're all capable of reading, but basically it shows you who can get what. If you had an early PPP loan, you can get one. If you had it after the 27th of last year, you can't. EIDL, pretty much anybody can get and still qualify for the other programs. The one thing to really keep in mind is that you can't use them for the same reason at the same time. So what do I mean by that? And this goes for all of them. You can't use them for payroll for December of 2020, or that's a bad example. You can't use them for payroll for January of 2021 and use both of them. What you can do is you could use, say, the PPP for January of 2021, and then you can use the EIDL loan for payroll for February of 2021, but they cannot overlap. That is a big no-no. Okay, but this is a great slide. If nothing else, just take a good look at this and orient yourself with it. Next slide. So this was part of the first PPP. It's still part of this. If you have an SBA loan, regardless of the kind of SBA loan it is, as long as it was a 7A, 504, or a micro loan, you get debt relief. And it's automatic. It should be automatic. And it should be done automatically by your lender. If that has not happened or you haven't got it and it's a genuine SBA loan, it doesn't matter if it was PPP or not. Shoot us an email at the office. I'm going to suggest you don't call. I'm going to be very honest with you, where it's much easier for us to get to emails than it is to get to all the calls, but it's up to you. But and we'll try to help you out with it. For the most part, the Jersey lenders have been fantastic with this. Where we have run into some trouble is some of the out-of-state lenders that did this there are still one or two Jersey folks that did it too. We kind of had to beat them over the head a little bit, which, as district director for New Jersey, I'm happy to do for you guys. Okay, next slide. Okay, So again, we have the PPP program, first and second draw. You've got debt relief if you had an existing SBA loan. That was for about 6 months. You have the EIDL and the targeted EIDL, which you can apply for the targeted EIDL. Okay, that's just the agency will send you a letter if they think you qualify. And shuttered venue operators grant. There is a list of frequently asked questions on the SVOG that is periodically updated. I neglected to include that in these slides, but I'll send it to DeAndre if he doesn't already have it. And we can go and you can go take a look at those. We can, if you ask me any questions about the SVOG, I'm going to be very honest with you. I'm not going to answer you because I can't. I have no information on it, and quite honestly, I'm not going to speculate because my crystal ball broke during this entire process. I have not been able to really, my predictions starting back in February and March are not shown to be true because here we are, still are. So next slide, please. If you aren't on our website, shame on you. SBA.gov/NJ. That links to the main SBA website, but if you go down in the lower left-hand corner, you're going to see the resource guides. We have our small business development centers, our SCORE offices, and our women's business centers throughout the state. For the most part, everybody is doing virtual, so you can do a one-on-one with somebody, get some assistance if you have questions. You're welcome to call the district, but I'm going to be very honest with you right now. Our focus is on making sure the lenders can get all your loans through as quickly and as unobstructed as possible. We are still talking to borrowers, but there's 4 or 5 of us for the entire state. So with the SBDC, the SCORE, and the Women's Centers Office, if they don't have the answer, they can probably get it to you a lot quicker. Okay, so SBA.gov/NJ. The resource guide is on the lower left corner of the top box. You'll see it says resource guide. Next, I think that's it. Okay, so yeah, a good idea to subscribe to the newsletter. If you want to follow us on SBA at SBA_New Jersey, that's my on Twitter. That's my email address. You're welcome to email me. At this point, I can usually get back in 24 to 48 hours. I probably shouldn't make that promise, but I generally try to get back in 24. But, you guys all know what it's like. And that is it, I believe. So that was pretty quick. So questions?
Hey, I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Hey, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. Good information. I've been trying to submit the forgiveness form to PNC Bank, and they seem to be in the dark about how to do that.
They are or you are?
They are. I've called them. I've talked to them. I've emailed them. They keep mentioning they have a portal and wait for an email, but I never receive an email from them. And I go up on their website. I have bank accounts there, and they just either not
Okay, so that's
or
yeah. Let me make a note. So that's PNC.
Yeah.
When you go to their main site, they don't have a link taking you to the forgiveness portal or for PPP or any of that?
They have a link that takes you to it, but it never brings you to a portal where you can actually, they have the instructions and whatnot.
Did they show you the form you have to use?
Yeah, there's a
Excuse me.
form there.
They said it's not ready yet.
Okay.
I have PNC also. They said the forgiveness portal's not ready yet, even for draw 1.
Interesting.
That's what my rep told me.
Okay,
Okay.
but I'm glad because to talk to you because my rep never calls me back.
Okay. My
Well,
rep
maybe,
doesn't.
so offline, you guys should talk to each other because maybe you want her rep.
Also, we have PNC and we didn't get any help until we went in person. And then we got tremendous help.
Well, I went in person and they told me they couldn't help me at my branch and that I had to go and they gave me a number to call.
Okay. So what I'm gonna do, I don't want to be rude, Martin, but I want everybody to
Same
get a
story with
chance
Chase.
to add.
Yeah,
So-
no problem.
So, yeah, so if you keep having issues, I mean, I can look into it a little bit for you and I'll let the congressman's office know what we found out. All right?
Yep, I got your email. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, Al, if there's a systemic problem with any particular bank, just let us know, and we can also call their Washington lobbyists who like to tell me that everything's going great.
Yeah,
So
I'm sure they
I'd like
do,
to know
sir.
that. Thanks.
Well,
I'll
thanks.
let
I
you
have
know.
PNC also.
Appreciate
They
it.
told me.
I have a situation with Chase where they can't even tell me what form I should use. I have a very small PPP loan. And do you know of the current form that I should
It's in the
be
slide.
filling?
I don't remember the name offhand, but it's actually in the slideshow.
This is endemic in all the big banks. The only banks that were forthcoming were the local banks. I'm TD Bank. I look every single day and they tell us they will begin accepting loan forgiveness applications when they can figure out what the new CARES Act tells them. And they keep moving the date that TD Bank says they may accept these applications is early March. So it's endemic with everybody I spoke to, the banks. And I think this is the government's fault because they've made it so complicated and so convoluted that even these big bankers can't figure it out. The only bankers that have figured it out are the small local banks.
Al, good
Very
afternoon.
frustrating.
Yes, so I got something from Square and it says just send my documentation into them, but they don't tell me like specifically what documentation they want me to send in. So I'm a little bit afraid to send anything in because then am I going to be caught up in the whirlwind of some kind of denial and appeal process? So that's and I only have like a $5,300 loan. This is going to cost me more than it's worth.
I would not just blindly send in. I agree with you. I would not just blindly send in.
We
So what
had
do you
the same
suggest?
problem with PNC, and we finally went in person, and they gave us all the correct documents they needed.
All right.
So
maybe PNC
is there
you
a
gotta just go.
deadline? Is there a deadline of when we
The
have to get
deadline,
our?
forgive me, because I'm honestly, my head has become mush over the last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But there is a certain period after you have gotten the loan that you're supposed to apply for forgiveness. That being said, if the lender wasn't ready and you can show, I would first of all, for all of you that are having issues with your lenders, keep your track record. So if SBA comes back, oh, well, now you're too late for this, you can say, wait, hang on a second. My impression is that SBA is not going to do that because we have heard about some issues, especially with the national banks. But, I can't really answer to that. All I can tell you is that I'll look in and see what I can find. And I will share it with the Congress's office so we can share it with all of you.
I think Chase Bank.
Can you?
Sorry, Chase Bank is also having the same issues. They started.
Yep, I have Chase down. I have Chase, TD, PNC.
And also,
Yeah, Chase started accepting application and then just stopped it eventually. And then now they're saying that they will come back later on.
Yeah, Al, this is.
So we're going to go ahead and get started with the questions. I know we have a lot of questions on the list. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our questions.
Okay.
Our first question comes from Hugh. Hugh, can you hear us? Hugh Campbell from Union, can you hear us?
Hugh, are you there? We need you to speak up.
All right, we will go to our next question. I know, Julie, you talked for a second. Did you have another question on top of that, Julie?
No, I think I'm caught up. Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you. Neil, the next question comes from Neil.
Hi, thanks for doing this, guys. Yeah, I had a question. We had actually, things changed basically with regards to PPP forgiveness subsequent to when we had actually submitted our initial forgiveness application. We were, I guess, one of the lucky ones. It sounds like we've been working with the smaller bank and actually got our forgiveness application in. We actually got partial forgiveness, but like I said, once we had started that, things changed. Safe harbor qualifications, things like that, which were not really kind of contemplated when we had initially submitted the application, came about. And it looks like in talking with our lender and in seeing some guidance from different accounting firms and other points of contact, it looks like we could have more forgiven. And we reached out to our lender to ask, how could we go about getting additional forgiveness as a result of those changes? And they had, the lender had spoken to the SBA, and it sounded like the SBA was expecting to allow companies to reapply, but as of now, there was still no process for that or a document for that. I was just hoping you could maybe update that, Al, for us and let me know how that would work and where that stands.
As far as I know, my update you're not going to like. They are still working on that. And I'm going to just let everyone know, this is what I said earlier. They're just double checking, actually triple checking, trying to make sure that there's no fraud. There was a lot of fraud through the forgiveness portal as well as PPP portal, so they're really working on that. As far as I know, I agree with what you heard. They are working on a way for folks to be able to update their forgiveness application. But as far as I know, and again, I'm writing it down, I'll check that also, it has not yet come out.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you for the question, Neil. Just for everyone on the call, again, if you do have a question, please use the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. Please include your name and the town you're from, and we'll add you to the list. Our next live question comes from Lorna from Clark. Lorna, can you hear us?
If you're on mute, I should say.
Okay, can you hear me?
There you go.
There we go.
We can hear you. Now we can't hear you.
It looked like she dropped off, so we're going to come back to her. Okay. Our next question comes from Arnold. Arnold, can you hear us?
Yep, I just unmuted. So my question is in reference to what AJ Titone said in the beginning, that the first and second draw applications have to be exactly the same. The second financial institution, which is different from my first financial institution, increased the amount of the PPP application that I submitted. Does the second draw application have to be the same exact amount as the first draw?
No, I'm sorry if I gave that impression. No, it does not. What I said by identical is I meant the information. So your name, your address, your social security or EIN number. The amount is, no, I'm sorry if I gave that impression.
No problem, thanks.
Our next live question comes from Andrea. Andrea, can you hear us?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Titone, for doing this. Very informative. I just wanted to let the group know that Governor Phil Murphy just actually recently announced that New Jersey will follow the federal government's lead to allow the PPP loan forgiveness to be tax exempt on the state level. So that's going to enable recipients to deduct the business expenses that were paid with the tax exempt loan proceeds. So I just wanted to mention that, and also for the amount of time, it's 10 months. From the time of the loan.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Andrew.
You're welcome.
Hello, this is Lorna. I'm sorry I couldn't. I'm back.
Okay.
Oh, may I speak now?
Sure.
Okay. Hi, I'm Lorna from Clark. Yeah, my company got approved for PPP last time, but we didn't use it because we didn't hire anybody. We think we can hire back by around mid-March. And we were wondering if we can qualify for another PPP.
So you qualified, but you didn't take the money. Is that what you're telling me?
No, because we couldn't hire. You know, we couldn't hire.
You're one of those on the edge cases. My suggestion would be to give it a shot. You would still be considered a second because you put it in, you qualified, you just didn't take the money. So I believe you would still be considered a second draw. but I just work with your lender on it and see what they can do. I think you would be able to, but it would count as a second draw loan, not a first.
It will be a second draw. Okay. And would we didn't qualify for EIDL grant before, or we didn't get anything from it? Can we apply for that one?
When you say the grant or the program or the loan program?
The grant.
Yeah, that I don't believe that is active now.
Oh, okay. So there's no grants, just the EIDL. Okay.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Our next question comes from Gene. Gene, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you so much for taking my call.
No.
And I am new to this process. I have not applied for anything yet, and I had closed my business since April.
We lost you muted your mic. Unmute your mic.
Okay, sorry about that. So
that's okay. So since April, you were closed. Go ahead.
I have closed, and I have one employee that passed away due to COVID-19. And now I have PNC that's been calling me because I have loan with them. They've been calling me and wanted me to apply for these programs. So that is the reason why I called in, just to understand exactly how do I go about participating? How do I submit my application? Which loan is the best compared to others? And I'm trying to learn the process.
Okay, so number one, I can't tell you which loan is best for you. That's up to you. But for the PPP, you have to work with the lender. So if you want to work with PNC, that's fine. You go to PNC and they will work with you on the application. So it sounds like you would be what they call a first draw, meaning that you have never had the PPP loan before. So, you would qualify for that as long as you met the criteria. But your lender has to do it with you.
Okay,
so
great.
You can't independently do it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Excuse me, I'm having difficulty to write my questions. Can I talk now?
Hold on 1 second. We have a list. We have a list of people. I'll add you to the list. We just want to make sure we go down of how people submit their questions, but we will get to you. Thank you. Gene, go ahead with your other question.
Yes, hello. This is Gene Gennady from the Greater Westfield Area Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank both the Congressman and Al for this service. It's really great. I have a member who got a PPP loan the first time through a local bank, but it appears that that bank now has sold the loan to a third-party company out in the Midwest somewheres, and they are having trouble getting through that process. They can't talk to anyone. It's just not working out for them. And,
getting through the forgiveness process, you mean, Gene?
Yeah, and the second PPP loan, they tried to get the second loan through the same company. They have now reversed and canceled that out and went to a local bank here, and within 7 days they applied and got their money. So they're still under the forgiveness program of that third-party company out, I think, in Chicago, and they're having no one will talk to them. It's not like you go to local bank branches, people have mentioned before, go in and sit down with somebody and talk to them about it. They're getting nowheres with this, and I don't know how many loans have been sold to this company, but it's not working well.
Gene, shoot me an email with the information and I'll see what I can find out.
I will do that. Thank you very much, Al. And, thank you again, both of you, for doing this. This is a great service and it really helps.
Thank you so much. Our next live question comes from Amanda. Amanda, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
For purposes of forgiveness, are loans 1 and 2 considered one loan? Meaning, do we do one forgiveness application or do we need to do individual ones?
Individual.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Our next live question comes from Kyle. Kyle, can you hear us?
Yes, I was wondering what are eligible expenses you can use your loan for?
If you take a look at the slide, there's a whole bunch of them and they were expanded for this PPP. So I don't have it in front of me right now. But it's on the website and it's also on the slide that Donjay is going to send out there. So there's a fairly extensive list of forgivable expenses. Includes rent, mortgage, payroll costs, insurance. There's a whole bunch of stuff.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Our next live question comes from Harvey. Harvey, can you hear us?
Okay, hi.
How are you doing?
I actually don't remember the question I put in originally, but I have another question in chat, which is if part of your loan is not forgiven,
right?
Can you pay that off quickly to avoid interest payments?
Yes. You can pay it off in one lump sum if you want.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Our next question comes from Kevin McConnell. Here. All right. Our next question comes from Jim. Jim, can you hear us? Jim, can you hear us?
Make sure your mics are unmuted, folks.
There you go. Do we have you, Jim?
I guess not.
All right. I see his mic is unmuted and his camera's on, so I'll just make a note to reach out to you. Dylan from Summit, can you hear us?
I can. Sorry. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. What do you do if you're one of those applications from PPP 1 to PPP 2 that seem to have, or we're being told by SBA, some difference in them? And I'm trying to work with my lender to correct those differences, but Chase Bank is being very difficult to work with.
Yeah.
Is there
So
any way to go directly to the SBA to update the file?
no, you can't.
Okay.
But the SBA is aware of it, and I know that they are working on a fix that hopefully will be out sooner rather than later.
It may
it's
be something
helping
as simple as we added a DBA.
I know.
An additional DBA. Okay.
I know it doesn't. I don't mean to sound coarse, but it doesn't really matter what it was. It was just something different.
Right.
But so there was an issue with the initial system. I'm just going to be straight out with you folks. SBA is fixing it, and from my understanding, it's close, but I can't make any promises to want to be ready. But I also know that we had a training for all the lenders a day or two ago on how to fix the different codes. So hopefully over the next week or so, a lot of that will get fixed, but I'm not making any promises. But the agency is aware of it because those of us in the districts have been pounding them with it. And
thank you for that. Would it make any sense to reapply through a different lender because of?
No, you will totally screw yourself up if you do that. That's going to look like fraud, and then you're going to go into the never land at the Attorney General's office. You don't want to, not the Attorney General, the whatever his name is. But yeah, you don't want to do that. That'll totally screw you up.
Good to know.
Thank you both.
No time.
Our next live
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, you're welcome. Inspector General is what I was trying to think of.
Our next live question comes from Ron. Ron, can you hear us?
Check your mic, Ron.
Can you hear us? We will come back to Ron.
Hello.
LaRonda. Oh, Ron? LaRonda,
if you're
we'll
there,
go on
speak
to our
up.
next question.
Okay, let's go to the next one.
We'll go to our next one. LaRonda is our next question. LaRonda, can you hear us?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my question is this. I got an EIDL grant for the $10,000. I did apply for PPP. I didn't get it. PNC was a disaster. I went to another bank. It went into the same place socks go, I think, in the dryer. never got the money. Then subsequently, I found out that if I did get PPP, I needed to pay back my EIDL to the extent that I got PPP. So it didn't really matter. I'm a really small business. So it was 6 of one, half dozen of another. So I didn't pursue the PPP. Is that rule still the same or has that changed?
No, that's what I was talking about earlier. That was fixed. So they're not deducting the idle advance from PPP loan anymore.
Okay, so if I get
So
the
I would apply.
PPP, okay, that's my question. And any suggestion on who to apply for? Or can you not even, you can probably
I
can't
have
go.
no suggestion, but in the thing, there's a way of finding. I will tell you what I tell every small business is that you should try the local lenders first, or if you have a bank, try your current bank, assuming you like them first. But there's a whole bunch of ways you can find a lender. Again, it'll be in the slides.
Okay, great. And those slides
Lender
will be
match
sent
is
out.
one.
I apologize. I did step into the
Yes,
call
yeah.
late.
Lender
Okay,
match is
fantastic.
one of them. That's one of the big ones. But yeah, I believe DeAndre, you're sending it out to everybody, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I
So
appreciate
just
this,
stay
guys.
tuned.
No problem.
Of course. So just stay tuned right after this and the slides will come out. Again, for everyone, please just make sure you're paying attention to the chat feature. If you submitted a question for the live question and answer portion, I'll be reaching out to you there to let you know when you're up next. Our next question comes from Gail. Gail, can you hear us?
Hello. Oh, sorry.
Well, that ain't good.
What happened there?
I know you're getting some kind of feedback there, Gail.
Can you give me a few minutes to figure it out?
Actually, you just did. It's not echoing anymore. Ask your question quick.
Okay. Well, my question is different from everyone else's, it seems. I own commercial property.
Okay.
And I have 10 tenants. And as of today, they've all managed to keep their businesses going, but I've cut their rent down. Right now, they're paying half.
Okay.
And it's getting to the point where, I just can't keep doing this, not letting them go without paying the full rent. Is there any help for me? Any place I can go?
That's a good question. I'm going to say I don't think so.
Taxes are due, insurance is due, and it's like they need to start paying, and they've told me they'll have to leave, and I really don't want to put them out of business and their employees.
Right. Well, number one, make sure they all applied for the PPP because then they can pay you. I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you, Gail. I don't know. I'll double check. My thought is that, however, that there is not assistance for you, but I don't want to say that for certain. So you're basically a building owner.
Yep.
Tenants that you've given a break, but now you need help. I'll check it out for you, and I'll get back to DeAndre with it.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Our next question, we're going to go back to Jim. I think we got his mic and stuff working. Jim, can you hear us? Never mind. All right, we'll come back to you, Jim. We'll switch over to Michael. Michael, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. How you doing, guys?
Good.
So I guess my question is a little bit like Lillian's. We did ours through TD Bank, and we keep calling, and they said that the portal shut down until they get clarification on the new CARES Act. We go into the branch, and nobody seems to know what's going on. And I heard that we have 10 months to apply for the forgiveness, if that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we're getting close to that.
Right.
How do we, go about going through that process? Like what?
Unfortunately, it has to be done through I'm going to ask you to mute your mic, Mike.
Oh, sorry.
Because I think that's what gets the feedback. All right. So I think you have to go through the lender. There's really nothing. There's no end run around that. The
I-
upside of that is that we're all aware that the lenders are having difficulty, but you can't submit the forgiveness directly to the agency. And like I said earlier, I just keep track of everything and just make sure, they can show, hey, look it, I was trying to do this.
So
Go ahead.
now I have one other question.
Sure.
As far as the PPP and the SBA loan, the PPP can be forgiven, the SBA you pay over time, correct? That's not forgiven.
I don't know. Well, a regular SBA loan is just a regular business loan. You pay it over time. Yeah.
That's
PPP
fine.
is just totally different.
Now,
Totally separate.
Now, as far as going to apply for the second PPP loan,
Mhm.
do we just go through the same process? Do we need to do the forgiveness application on the first one before we go to the second
No.
one? Or
You have to have spent all the money on, but it had to have been 100% spent on forgivable. So it had to have been forgivable. Doesn't mean you have to be in the forgiveness process. It just had to have been forgivable. Follow what I mean?
Okay, gotcha. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you both. We're going to go back to Ron. I think we were able to get his technology up and going. Ron, can you hear us?
Turn your mic on, Ron. There you go.
Okay. I'm unclear, the EIDL.
Get closer to your mic. I can't understand you.
Okay. The EIDL, is that a grant or a loan?
It's a loan. There's a small grant. Well, actually, it's not anymore. Now it's a loan.
And how is the loan, if you have a PPP loan and a EIDL loan,
Yeah.
which expenses go to which?
I don't know
How
what
does
you
that
mean.
work?
Oh, you can use them for the same expenses. You can't just use them for the same expenses at the same time. So you can use them both, for instance, for payroll or rent, but you can't use them for payroll or rent in the same month. You understand what I mean? So you could use PPP till it ran out, and then you could use idle after that.
And would it pay to do one before the other?
That's strictly that's your decision how that would work for you.
Okay.
There's no inherent advantage to use one over the other.
Otherwise, they would both become loans, whatever portion you didn't use.
Well, no. So the PPP, if you use it 100% for payroll or related or the other expenses that are in the slide, that would be forgiven. It would eventually become a grant once it's forgiven. But the idle is always a loan from day one to whenever you pay it off. The only time the PPP turns into a loan is if you don't use 100% of the funds for payroll related expenses. At that point, whatever you didn't use becomes a loan.
So on the EIDL, if you apply expenses against it, if it's not reducing the amount,
nope.
Let's say it was $10,000.
Nope, it's strictly a loan. Two separate, totally separate things. EIDL is always a loan.
Okay.
No matter what happens.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, next question. I don't want to mispronounce your name, but Prati?
Yes, hi, this is Preeti Duta. Hello, Mr. Titan, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good, thank you. So ultimately, I'm catching you here. I spoke to you, I almost like going to be a month now, with that $1,000 EIDL forgiveness from SBA. So ultimately, SBA sent a confirmation mail saying that as per new legislation, it's been resolved. And although I was having tons of trouble with my lender Cabbage, now they said that, okay, they will do the adjustment, but my loan still shows in the portal and it was due on 9th. And they say not to worry, I did not pay the first installment because of this confirmation. Is that going to be okay, or I'm going to messing up with this?
You should be fine. As far as I know, that you should be fine because you already had the confirmation, but a lot of people came up. There's a lot of, you're not alone in that situation. Let me put it to you that way.
So
Okay,
basically not responding to the loan
Yeah.
portal, not paying the first installment to SBA is not a big deal right now, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you should respond to them saying, you know, blah, 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 I've gotten this forgiven as per whatever, and show them the paperwork. And I would do that. I don't expect you to get an answer, but I would do that simply to cover your own self. You know what I mean?
Oh, so instead of making the payment, send a communication to SBA.
Yeah.
Because every time I go to SBA, they say deal with your lender, and lender, I had a tough time to deal with this lender, but of course I have to resolve with them. I know, and the lender said not to worry about. We will you know, refund that money and adjust it. But so far, nothing has been done, and my first installment was due on 9th, this Tuesday, and since they say don't need to pay, so I did not initiate the loan process. And every time go to SBA, they kick back to go to lender. So I don't know. I left it on.
Yeah. Like I say, as far as I know, it shouldn't be an issue, but I haven't emails from you, right?
Yes, and
Yeah.
later on, I didn't get any response back from you. Then I don't know. I was still trying here and there, and ultimately.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sorry if I missed you, but I'm literally getting thousands of emails.
I know, but
I apologize if I missed you. I try to get everybody. So shoot me another email, put Congressman's webinar in the subject,
Okay.
and I'll send you to one of my lender relations specialists who are much more knowledgeable about this than I am. All right?
Just to resolve this matter, that loan portal is still open, and it should be resolved.
Yeah.
On that.
Well, I don't think it's going to be an issue, but we'll just make sure for you. Okay?
Yeah, because this lender is very hard to deal with.
I know we've been having issues with cabbage.
Cabbage,
but-
yeah. I now somehow I want to get resolved and get done for the round 2. I'm not even thinking to go with them. I just want to close the relationship as soon as this thing gets settled.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. We're going to have Al hang around just a few more moments. We're going to try to get through as many questions as possible. Our next question is going to come from Nancy. Nancy, can you hear us? Nancy, I see your mic is unmuted. Can you hear us? All right, we're going to try another one. Jim, can we hear you this time? Can you hear us?
I don't know. Do you hear me?
There you go. Yep.
You hear me?
Here we go.
Great, great. Mine was more a comment than a question. I got my, I won't name names of banks because I don't want to do that, but the big bank was absolutely no help at all. They didn't even return my call. And when I'm up on my feet one day, I'm taking all my pennies out of there. The small local bank helped me out twice. I got small loans, but basically keeping a roof over my head. And hopefully with the vaccines getting widespread, my business will come back. The bank I dealt with, though, I asked them about the forgiveness, and they just basically told me they either weren't prepared or didn't have the information on it yet, but that they would reach out to me. So I just wanted to share that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Perfect. Our next question comes from Bill. Bill, can you hear us?
Yes.
I can. Thank you.
Thank you. I had
2 bills. Sorry.
Bill, there you go.
Go ahead, Bill. Bill, go ahead.
Bill, you okay? Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So mine's a little bit different also in that I just wanted to confirm that 100% wholly owned foreign owner companies are not eligible for PPP. So
right.
we're a U.S. company, a C Corp here, but we're owned by a company based in Austria, and I just wanted to make sure that we are not eligible for PPP.
Yeah, you're breaking up. If I understand the question,
US employees,
you're a wholly owned subsidiary of a foreign company, but you're incorporated here in the United States. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. You are a borderline.
Yes,
it kind of depends on how everything's structured. General, the answer to your question would be no, you wouldn't be qualified for it. But with this round of PPP, some of those criteria have been loosened a little bit. So I would find a lender, talk to a lender and get their opinion. Because
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, sorry.
no, I was just going to say, first round you wouldn't have been. This round, I'm not sure.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'll give it a try, and just want to appreciate your time and the Congressman's time for putting this together. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm going to read Nancy's question for her. Al, I've applied for forgiveness for several loans under $150,000 months ago with all the supporting documents the bank requested. Now that the application is being changed for loans under $150,000 and documentation is not being required, is this going to reset the clock as far as the forgiveness process goes?
It should
what
not.
is the time frame for being granted the forgiveness?
I don't know what the time frame is right now, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm not sure that there is one, but that's not going to change your application. Your application's in, you have the documentation, that's fine. You don't have to worry about redoing it. As long as the lender put it in a timely manner. You just got to make sure the lender actually put in the application for forgiveness. That's all.
Thank you so much. Our next live question comes from Simon. Simon, can you hear us?
Oh, yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Barely.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Congressman, and thank you so much, Al. I have a question about the SVOG grants. So I am I'm a performer. I produce my own one-man show primarily for corporate events. And I wanted to know if I'm likely to be covered by SVOG, and secondarily, when SVOG will be accepting applications.
The answer to both of those is I have no idea.
Okay.
You can go to the questions on the SBA website. Just Google SVOG FAQs or something like that. It tells you who's eligible. In general, it's more for venues than it is for individuals. That's actually one of the things that was a bit of a mistake in this, in my opinion. I probably shouldn't say that, get myself in trouble. But yeah, but I can't tell you yay or nay on either one of those. Sorry, Simon.
Okay, thanks anyway.
Our next question comes from Patricia. Patricia, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay.
Yeah.
My question is, are you aware of any other loan programs other than what we've talked about, or basis to obtain more than 2.5 times the monthly average payroll? Unfortunately, woefully inadequate for some of us who have continued to pay our employees even when they're not working, and actually we're paying them more than our gross business income for 2020. So is there anything else? Because I think I'm not the only person who doesn't want to let employees go. On the other hand, it's hard to keep paying out of pocket.
Right. The short answer is, to my knowledge, no. The agency certainly doesn't have anything. The federal government doesn't, that I know of. I can't speak for what other agencies are offering.
Well,
But
can I ask you then, so there's nothing, even if we apply for the second PPP and show that we had much less than 25%, in the year, it still doesn't increase the amount that we can borrow. Is that correct?
well, that depends. And you don't have to tell me. It doesn't matter how much you borrowed the last time. It's just dependent on the math. So whatever it is, it's up to $2
Math
million.
is only 2.5 times your monthly payroll.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry.
Thank you so much. Our next question will go to Bill and Donna. Bill, can you hear us? Bill and Donna?
Yes, thank you. I just had a question about repaying or getting forgiveness for PPP. Is it possible to only use salary to qualify for the forgiveness? I know we borrow 2.5 times salary, but the loan is rather small and we can cover,
Yes.
we
Yeah.
can?
Yeah, that's a coverable expense, so that's fine.
Okay, great. Just real quick, I just wondered, I understood the 10-month period starts at the end of the 8 or 24 week
Correct.
period. That's correct. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Our next question will come from Elisa. Elisa?
Hi, thank you so much. My question actually kind of coincides with the previous person. So I'm also using my funds for payroll. My problem is during my forgiveness application, it asked for documentation. And the PPP funds were actually deposited into my personal account instead of my business account with the same bank. I put my business account number on there, but they put it into my personal account. Is my showing of the PPP being deposited into my personal account enough documentation to show as payroll?
Well, what you're going to show is payroll is what you paid out. So did you move it over to your business account after it was in your personal account?
A couple of days after I realized what had happened, yes. And then I started spending myself money.
Right. You'll probably be okay. They're really not looking at so much where the money went into. I mean, they are because they're looking for fraud, but they want to see how it was spent. So as long as you realize within a couple of days, oh, this is in the wrong thing, and you transferred the same amount that was deposited into your personal account into your business account, you should be fine. And then you paid the payroll from your business account, right?
Right, right.
Okay, you should be fine. As long as you can show that. You're welcome.
Okay.
Our next question comes from Lisa G. Lisa, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Can you hear me? We're good?
Yep.
Thanks so much for this. Yeah, so I'm self-employed, and I believe my understanding is how this started was that there was a requirement to apply for unemployment, be refused, and then be able to go to PPP. My income due to COVID was half of what it was, a pretty low amount in 2020 than it was in 19. What's the process there, please?
What's the what?
Yeah, just please take the question. You're good. The process for managing this.
Process for managing the second round PPP. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm being dense.
So it's okay. Clarify whether or not there needs to be a refusal of unemployment as a self-employed person, number one, and then whether or not that's the case. And if it is the case, okay, I've not applied for any PPP. I've just been waiting, and now I can't wait any longer. So
to my knowledge, that is not a requirement. I would have to double check. I know that was floating around there, but I mean, to my knowledge, that's not a requirement for a sole proprietor.
it was floating around there.
Yeah. Oh, I know, but I do not believe that is the case.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We'll go to Martin S. Martin S., can you hear us?
Yep, thank you very much. Yeah, I got an eligibility question. So early last year, I set up a property management LLC. I bought an office, professional office to consult from with an idea of renting out the rest of the building. And the running costs are quite considerable, and I've not been able to get any tenants at all. So can I claim to cover those running costs in the absence of tenants? The consulting work has dried up as well. So, you know, both businesses are not doing well.
I believe under the new PPP, you can. Again, that's something you'll have to go over with the lender, but property management is eligible to get PPP under the new regs, I believe. So I think you should be able to get at least something.
Great.
But again, you have to coordinate with the lender.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Well, thank you, everyone. We do want to try to abide to the time limit, try to get through as many questions as possible. Before I turn it over to the Congressman for closing remarks, we will be sending out the slides through our newsletter. So you'll see a message now in the chat feature to sign up for the newsletter. That is how we'll be sending out the slides after this presentation. So if you'd like to see the slides or have contact information for Al and his team, please sign up for the newsletter there. And without further ado, we'll turn it back over to the Congressman for closing remarks.
Thanks, DeAndre. Were there any other unanswered questions?
Actually, I did have a question.
No, I'd rather do another question than formal remarks. So let's do one more.
Thank you. If I might, my question is the actual calculation for the repayment of the loan forgiveness. That's the first part of it. The second part of it is, what if that date comes and goes prior to the lending institution providing us with the application to apply for it? So is it 10 months from the date of receipt of the loan proceeds? Is that how we calculate the deadline by which we must apply for loan
No,
forgiveness?
it's 10 months from the end of the period that you use, whether it was the 8 or 24 weeks.
Okay, and how would I know that period? It's just a matter of when those funds were depleted, whether it was depleted in 8 weeks rather than 24 weeks?
Well, when you applied for the PPP loan, you chose either 8 or 24 weeks for when you were justifying the loan. So whenever that period ended, regardless of when the money ran out.
Okay. And the second part is, if the deadline for loan forgiveness comes and goes without the ability to apply for loan forgiveness through the institution, what recourse do I have?
Keep track of everything. I can't imagine the agency is going to penalize you because the lender screwed up. So, and the agency is aware that this is happening. So I would just keep your record showing you kept, hey, you know, what's going on? I need to apply, blah, blah, blah. It'll be on the lender, not you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Senator, I have a
question.
I have a question too. They didn't get to me.
Are you okay taking one or two more, Al? I don't want to.
Yep. I can go to about another 12 minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I guess the lady can go first, and then I'll go after her.
Hi, thank you. My name is Joanne. I'm from Milburn Township. First, thank you for doing this. I am a consultant for a small company that fortunately was able to get a PPP loan that was dispersed in 2021. Just to give you some background, it's a company that provides professional development services in schools. And as you know, with many schools going virtual, this was like a supplemental service. So their business model has been very poorly impacted. And the question is, now with these loans that have been dispersed, while they're trying to keep the business going, the type of work they're providing is a mix of what it was before. And so to come up with a combination of full-time equivalents is very different than the set of employees they had before. When they apply for forgiveness, the question is, what comparative periods for loans that were dispersed in 2021 will be relevant? And obviously, if they use it over 8 weeks, I assume it's an 8-week look back period, or 24, whatever it is. But it'd be helpful to understand more about what the comparative guidance will be for loans dispersed in 2021. And
I'm not really sure. You mean for forgiveness? I'm not
yeah,
sure.
so applying for loan forgiveness, my understanding is that there was a certain computation of the full-time equivalents at 2 different points in time, and then the better one, the one that gives you a better result relative to what the full-time equivalent is for when you use the loan proceeds as part of the loan forgiveness application. And if you're by monthly, you know, then you have to come up with that calculation as well, and then do the averaging. But there really hasn't been, in my opinion, clear guidance on how to do these calculations. And also, I mean, I understand the dollars, but when a mix has changed and you don't have the same employees, it just would be helpful if you can get back to people and help us to understand.
Okay, well, the calculations are all on the website. I mean, I'm not an expert in this, in the calculations, but if you go to PPP, just Google PPP forgiveness SBA or some combination thereof, and it should get you to the forgiveness page, and it explains everything you need to know about forgiveness for both the original and the second.
So I'm sorry, and I appreciate that, but with respect to the timing, most everything was relevant to loans that were dispersed from the first round. It's not clear whether the timing changes at all in terms of the comparison for the loans that are now part of the CARES Act 2021.
The 2 different loans. That's one doesn't. The second draw is strictly regarding comparing one quarter to another quarter. So 1 quarter in 2019 versus 1 quarter in 2020, or whatever it is, 2020, 2021. It's not dependent on the first loan. The only thing on the first loan that it's dependent on is that you had to have used all of the first loan's funds, and they had to have been 100% forgivable. It doesn't mean you had to have gone through forgiveness, it just means that they had to have been forgivable.
Okay, so I'm not sure I'm being clear. This is their first loan. They did not get a loan prior to a PPP loan prior to a disbursement in 2021. So this is their first loan. I
Okay.
understand they can use it for a period of between 8 and 24 weeks. But
Right.
when they're computing whether or not for forgiveness, they have hired back a higher FTE equivalent relative to the comparative periods. It's not clear what the comparative periods
It's raw
are.
numbers. It's raw numbers. You know what I mean? So let's say they hired one person that cost them 1.5 FTEs previously. It's just the raw number, whatever the FTE equivalent is. You know
Yes,
what
but
I'm
it's
saying?
not clear what are the prior periods that they need to compare to. Like,
It's
is it back to 2019? Is it back to 2020 where the company was operating? I'm just trying to understand when you file for forgiveness, I understand what it will be now using the funds, but looking back, what are the relevant comparative periods? They were
I
specified.
don't, for this round of PPP. So you're talking this round of PPP, they did the first draw, they made their calculations, they got money, and you're asking about what's going to happen for forgiveness. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So for forgiveness, it's basically a basic form, and you just have to show that you applied the money as you were supposed to get forgiven. You know, maybe we should do this offline, or I can put you with my lender relations specialist, because I think we're kind of talking by each other. And that's nobody's fault. It's just hard to do online. But the bottom line is, for the PPP for forgiveness, you can just, you know, it's strictly whatever the FTE is. If you hired somebody who was the equivalent of 1.5 or 2 FTEs previously, the math doesn't care. They just want to know what the number was. So therefore, your costs would go up and your profits down. So you'd probably have more than 25%, but I can't make that determination.
Okay, it'd be great if you can put me in touch with someone afterwards. Thank you.
Okay.
Will you take a question about a nonprofit?
Well, we have somebody else.
Yes, yes. And my
Richard.
name's Rich from Union. I just have a quick eligibility question. I have a full-time job and a part-time job, and I drive also Lyft and Uber that was affected by COVID. Am I eligible for a PPP loan for the Uber and Lyft?
Yeah, you might be. You should be. I mean, even though it's a part-time job, I don't know what the requirement is for how many hours. I don't know.
Should I check with the lender on that?
Yeah, I go to the lender. My gut tells me that you should be able to do something, as you know. It's one thing if you're only doing 5 hours a week on it, then you're not going to qualify for anything. But if you're doing 20, 30 hours a week or something like that, you should be able to qualify.
Okay. Yeah, because
But
I
check with
did.
the lender. That's your best bet.
I did try to get it on the first one, and I was denied because I think they didn't put the application in until late, the bank. So I'll go
You
to
weren't
another
alone.
lender.
Yeah, you weren't alone with that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very
You're
much for your time.
You're welcome. All right, I'll take one more.
Nonprofit question?
If I can answer it, sure.
Okay, so the second round, do you include the loan and grants when you're figuring revenue to compare 2019 quarters to 2020 quarters?
The loan that you have already taken out, or the grant that you're already taken out? No.
Yes, we have a loan
Right.
and we've gotten grants through 2019 and 2020. Now to apply for another loan, you have to compare quarters 2019 to 2020.
Right.
Do you include as revenue the loan and grants like we've got?
I can tell you that we're not including hours. I don't know what they'll do with outside grants. So if you got a grant from somebody else, that I can't tell you. But from the SBA standpoint, they're not going to include that.
Oh, okay. But if you got a grant from the state of New Jersey, you don't know about it.
I don't know. My guess would be that they probably would, but I don't want to say for certain on that.
Okay, but you don't include this loan?
No, SBA is not going to include that. Right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Right. You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Go ahead, Tom.
Thanks, DeAndre. Thank you, Al, so much for staying later.
No problem.
And
happy to
getting
do it.
all the questions answered. I think we can all tell that this was a really, really useful session, and I hope everybody who came with a question had it answered. Obviously, if not, you can always reach out to us, and in some of these cases, we may be able to, my office may be able to help you navigate through whatever problems you're experiencing. One of my takeaways is that we do need to talk to some of the bigger banks about the amount of time that they're taking with the forgiveness applications. It is silly that small banks can do this better than the big banks. You'd think it would be the other way around, right? So we can, yeah, well, they got more resources too. So, you know, we can take that up. We designed this program to work, not to fail. And it is, I think, as Lillian said at the beginning, it is ultimately the government's responsibility to make sure that it succeeds. So we will do our part. Thank you, everybody, so much. We'll keep on doing these sessions. We'll stay in touch with you, stay in touch with us. Everybody be safe and healthy. I think there's light at the end of the tunnel. Let's get through the next few months.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks, folks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman.